I knew I didn't look like the other women there. I had prepared myself for that. What I didn't expect, what I couldn't prepare for, was the sound of them whispering. It was supposed to be a new beginning. I had put on my cleanest leggings, the black ones with extra compression. I tied my hair back tight, covered most of my body with a loose sweatshirt, and walked into that gym with every ounce of courage I had. When I asked about personal training, the receptionist looked at me like I'd asked for a cheeseburger in a vegan cafe. Then came the whisper. Gym isn't for fat people. Not loud, not obvious, just loud enough for me to hear. Just soft enough for her to pretend it wasn't meant for me. They laughed, or maybe just smirked. I'm not sure which hurt more. I smiled politely, nodded, left. And in the silence of my car, I broke. But what they didn't know, what I didn't even know yet, is that one day I would open a place where women like me could move, breathe, exist, and people like them, they'd never be welcome. If you've ever felt like the world wasn't built for your body, this story is for you. Like this video, subscribe, and comment below where you're watching from. Let's show them how far a whisper can travel. I think I always knew I was different. Not in a special, unique way, but in a way that felt wrong. Too much, out of place. My earliest memories aren't of playdates or birthday parties. They're of being watched. Watched as I reached for a second serving at family dinners. Watched as I squeezed into a classroom chair. Watched as I ran across the playground, my body moving differently than the others. I was 6 the first time someone called me big. It was my aunt. She didn't mean it cruelly. She said it the way adults say things when they think kids aren't paying attention. She's a big girl, huh? My mother chuckled awkwardly. Yeah, she takes after her father's side. I did. My dad was tall, broad-shouldered, solid, but no one called him big like that. He was strong. I was too much. By the time I was 8, my wardrobe was already different from the other girls. While they wore bright colors and sparkly jeans, I wore dark cardigans and elastic waistbands. My mom said it was slimming. I didn't know what that meant, but I understood it was important. At school, I started noticing how desks felt tighter, how I walked a little slower during gym class, how some kids wouldn't pick me for their team, not because they hated me, but because they didn't believe in me. And then came food. Food was love in our house, but it was also shame. My grandma baked to show affection. Warm tortillas, pan dulce, arroz con leche. But the moment I reached for seconds, someone would say, maybe just one, mija. Maybe just one. Maybe you've had enough. Maybe you're enough. At 10, I learned to eat in secret. Cookies hidden in my backpack, chips eaten in silence after school while pretending to do homework. The kitchen became both sanctuary and battlefield. Every bite was a negotiation between hunger and guilt. And at school, the whispers started. I remember a boy in 4th grade, Diego, who made animal noises when I walked by. Mooing, oinking, laughing. The teacher ignored it. The other kids joined in. I went home and told my mom. She said, just ignore them. They're jealous. Jealous? Of what? Of how my thighs rubbed together when I ran? Of how my shirt rode up when I lifted my arms? No one was jealous. They were just cruel. So I learned to disappear. Not literally. I couldn't do that. But I got quieter, stopped raising my hand, sat in the back of the class, tried to shrink, not physically, because that never worked, but emotionally. At 12, I went on my first diet. It was my mom's idea. She didn't call it a diet. She said we were eating clean. No tortillas, no sugar, water with lemon. I lost a few pounds. Everyone noticed. Everyone said, "You look amazing," like I'd been ugly before. But I was starving, and the weight came back. By 13, I hated my body. Not just disliked, not just wished it were different. I hated it. I blamed it for everything, for the loneliness, for the way boys ignored me, for the pity in my teacher's eyes, for the comments from tias at family gatherings. Estás bonita, pero necesitas cuidarte, mija. You're pretty, but you need to take care of yourself. As if I hadn't been trying. I started journaling at 14. Most of the entries were about food and boys, but sometimes, late at night, I wrote things I didn't understand fully. Things like, I don't think I'll ever be normal. I wish I could unzip my skin and step out. Why can't I just be small? I wanted to be invisible. Not because I didn't want love or connection, but because every time someone saw me, they saw this body, this burden. I stopped going to birthday parties, started wearing men's hoodies, avoided pools, covered mirrors in my bedroom, avoided photos. I became a ghost girl, present but not really seen, and no one questioned it. Because as long as I was quiet, polite, and self-deprecating enough, I was tolerable. As long as I laughed at fat jokes first, no one felt uncomfortable. As long as I stayed ashamed, they stayed at ease. But deep inside me, buried under years of silence and stretch marks, was a little voice. Faint, fading, but still alive. It whispered something different. What if your body isn't the problem? I didn't believe it. Not yet. Not even close. But I remember the day that whisper spoke a little louder. It was still years away. Right now, all I knew was that I was too big for the world I was in, and the world made sure I never forgot it. High school was where I perfected the art of disappearing. Not physically. I couldn't. No matter how much I tried to shrink, I was still the big girl. But socially, emotionally, personally, I faded. By then, I knew exactly how to move through a hallway without drawing attention, how to sit at the edge of a group so I wouldn't have to speak, how to laugh just enough to be tolerated, but not so loud that I'd stand out. I had friends, not many, and never close ones. Most were kind enough, but no one ever invited me to sleepovers or pool parties. I wasn't the girl anyone had a crush on. I wasn't even the funny fat friend. I was just background. A few people liked me, I think, but no one wanted to be seen with me. I watched other girls with fascination, how they moved so easily in their own skin, how they wore shorts without pulling them down every 5 seconds, how they took selfies and smiled with their full faces instead of angling and hiding. I wanted to be like them so badly it hurt. I thought if I could just lose the weight, just enough weight, I could earn the right to exist, to flirt, to be admired, to be chosen. So I tried. I tried every diet I could find online. Keto, paleo, low carb, low fat, clean eating, intermittent fasting. I downloaded apps that tracked every bite, every step, every drop of water. I measured cucumbers. I weighed myself twice a day. I cried over bananas. At one point, I lost 25 pounds. The compliments flooded in. You look amazing. Finally doing something about it, huh? What's your secret? I smiled. Lied. Said I was just eating healthier and walking more. What I didn't say was that I was skipping meals, obsessing over calories, and going to bed hungry enough to feel dizzy in the morning. What I didn't say was that I hated myself more than ever, because now I knew I could lose weight, so why hadn't I done it sooner? And of course, I gained it all back. That's the part no one tells you. When you live in a body the world wants to fix, they cheer your progress but disappear when you fail. When the weight came back, and it always did, the silence returned. The respect disappeared, and the shame multiplied. I developed a habit of making fun of myself before anyone else could. At lunch, I'd say, "Don't worry, I brought enough snacks for the whole table." In class, if someone mentioned gym class, I'd joke, "My body rejects exercise on a cellular level." People laughed. That meant they liked me, right? But every joke was a brick in the wall I was building between who I was and who I wanted to be. In college, things didn't get better. If anything, they got lonelier. I studied marketing because I was good at hiding behind ideas. I could build campaigns and brand voices and strategies, but I had no idea how to build a life. I avoided campus events. I hated the idea of being the only fat girl in a sea of crop tops and ripped jeans. Dating? Please. If I got a message on an app, it was either a fetishist or someone trying to humiliate me. One guy wrote, "I usually don't go for girls your size, but you've got a cute face." I unmatched him and cried in the bathroom stall for 30 minutes. Eventually, I deleted the apps. Love felt like a fantasy reserved for other bodies. Instead, I poured myself into work, became reliable, quiet, productive. I got praised for my efficiency, my attention to detail, my ability to get things done without drama. No one asked how I was. No one really saw me. And that was fine. That was what I'd trained for. But late at night, in the quiet, the loneliness echoed. I'd scroll through social media and see people I knew getting engaged, traveling, living, wearing clothes I didn't dare try, dancing, being touched, smiling in full-body photos. And me? I didn't even own a full-length mirror. I told myself I was focusing on my career, that I was independent, that I didn't need anyone. But the truth was simpler and sadder. I didn't believe I was allowed to want more. The world had taught me that my body was a problem, a liability, an inconvenience, and I believed it. So I stayed small, not in size, but in spirit. I said no to invitations. No to cameras, no to intimacy. I lived a half-life. And then, one day, something shifted. It was small, almost nothing, but real. A thought, a question. What if you could want more, even if you don't believe you deserve it yet? It didn't change everything, but it cracked the surface, and soon, I would try again, not because I believed I'd succeed, but because I was tired of never trying. For most of my life, I didn't let myself dream about being someone different, not thinner, exactly, but freer, looser in my own skin. Able to stand in a room without calculating how much space I was taking up. Able to move without flinching at every mirror, every sideways glance, every silent judgment. But after years of silence, something inside me began to shift. It didn't happen all at once. It started as a flicker, a subtle hum beneath all the noise of shame and resignation. I remember the moment clearly. I was at the grocery store standing in front of the prepackaged salads. A woman walked by in leggings and a sports bra glistening with sweat. She was laughing into her phone, keys in hand, gym bag over her shoulder. She didn't look self-conscious. She looked alive. And I thought, I want that. Not her body, not her clothes. I wanted that energy, that ease, that life. That same night, I opened my laptop and typed into Google, "Gyms near me plus beginner friendly." Dozens of results popped up. I clicked through each one, checking their photos, reading reviews, trying to decipher which places might be safe for someone like me. Most were filled with sculpted bodies and slogans like "No excuses" and "Beast mode." I kept scrolling until I found one with a softer tone. Their site said, "Fitness for every body." I froze. Every body? Was that a typo? Or was it possible? I read their description 3 times. It sounded inviting. No mention of weight loss. No before and after pictures. They offered personal training, group classes, flexible hours, a photo of a smiling trainer with open arms, welcoming, warm. I bookmarked the page, and then I stared at it for an hour. It took me 3 more days to work up the courage to email them. I wrote something short. Hi, I'm interested in learning more about your personal training options for beginners. I haven't been physically active in a long time. They replied quickly. A woman named Kara responded with kindness and professionalism. She told me to come in anytime for a tour and free consultation. Said they'd be happy to help me start wherever I was. I cried reading that. Not because it was extraordinary, but because it felt rare. So rare to be spoken to like I was normal. Like I belonged. I didn't tell anyone. Not even my closest friend. I kept it to myself, like a secret wish. I didn't want to be talked out of it. I didn't want anyone to plant doubt in my head. I started preparing in silence. I ordered workout clothes online. Black, loose-fitting, everything labeled high compression. I researched how to introduce movement slowly. I practiced a few stretches at home just to remind my body what it felt like to move intentionally. I even practiced walking into the gym in my mind. Visualized it like a ritual. Walk in, smile, speak clearly, don't shrink, don't apologize, ask for what you want. I played it over and over in my head until it felt possible. The morning of the visit, I woke up early. My hands trembled as I packed my bag. Water bottle, towel, deodorant, extra shirt, just in case. I pulled my hair back in a tight bun, stood in front of the mirror, and gave myself a look. "You're doing this," I whispered. I didn't believe it. Not really. But I needed to hear it out loud. The drive there felt surreal. My stomach twisted the whole time, like something inside me already knew what was coming. But I clung to the possibility. The maybe. Maybe this time will be different. Maybe they meant it when they said, everybody. Maybe I'm allowed to want this. I parked in front of the building and sat in my car for 10 minutes. I kept checking the time, rereading the email, rehearsing what I'd say. When I finally got out, I straightened my posture like armor. Head up, shoulders back. You belong, you belong, you belong. The glass doors reflected me before I stepped inside. I almost turned around. But I didn't. I walked in. The air smelled like rubber mats and eucalyptus. The music was low. Bright light poured in through the windows. A few people were stretching, others on treadmills. I stepped up to the front desk, where a young woman with a tight ponytail and glowing skin greeted me. "Hi," I said. "I'm here for a consultation with Kara. I emailed a few days ago." She blinked. Then her eyes drifted, just for a second, down to my stomach, my thighs. I saw it, that quick scan, that familiar flicker of judgment. She turned to another trainer nearby and whispered something. They both smirked. I tried to convince myself I was imagining it, but I wasn't. And then, it happened. The whisper. Just loud enough, just soft enough. "Gym isn't for fat people." I stood there, still smiling, pretending I hadn't heard it. Pretending the whisper wasn't real. That maybe I had misheard. That maybe it was about something, someone else. But I knew. The way the trainer tilted his head, half grinning, looking past me like I didn't matter. The way the receptionist quickly looked down at her keyboard, typing nothing. The way their bodies shifted away from me, like I took up too much space just by existing in the same room. I knew. Gym isn't for fat people. It wasn't shouted. It wasn't said in a mocking tone. That would have been easier to fight, easier to hate. But no, it was said like a truth, like a fact, like something so obvious they didn't even feel bad saying it. I felt my face burn, my ears rang. My heart slammed in my chest so hard I thought it would bruise me from the inside. I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came out. What could I say? They weren't kicking me out. They weren't refusing me. They didn't have to. That whisper was enough. It told me I didn't belong. that I was a joke, a mistake, an offense to the aesthetic they worked so hard to curate. I looked around. No one else seemed to notice, or maybe they did and didn't care. One man doing bicep curls stared straight through me. A woman on a mat glanced up, then back down, uninterested. I turned back to the receptionist. She smiled again, this time awkward, tight-lipped. "So, would you like to book a consultation?" Her voice was brittle, like she wanted to get it over with, like she hoped I would say no. I stared at her, at the glowing screen behind her with looping videos of toned bodies doing squats and burpees, and in that moment, I saw it clearly. This place was never meant for me, not just this gym, all of them. Every ad, every locker room, every class where the instructors bark orders without considering knees that hurt, bodies that don't bend that way, hearts that carry trauma with every breath. They weren't for me. I shook my head. "No, I'm okay. Thank you." I turned and walked out as calmly as I could, even though my body felt like it was crumbling with every step. My hands were trembling by the time I reached the parking lot. I couldn't find my keys at first. My vision was blurry. I wasn't even sure if I was crying yet or just unraveling. When I finally got into my car, I sat there in silence, total silence, the kind of silence that feels loud, that wraps itself around your throat and presses down. I stared straight ahead, the steering wheel, my lap, my hands. That whisper replayed in my head like a broken record. Gym isn't for fat people. Gym isn't for fat people. Gym isn't for fat people. The most painful part wasn't the cruelty. It was the recognition. Because deep down, I had already believed it. I had built my whole life around that belief, around the assumption that I didn't belong in places like that I wasn't allowed, that I had to earn the right to exist in public. I thought I had challenged that belief by walking in. But the moment they confirmed it, the moment the world reflected that fear back to me, it shattered everything I'd been holding together. I didn't cry right away. Not in the car, not even when I got home. Instead, I shut down. I walked inside, dropped my bag, went to the kitchen, and opened the fridge. I ate, mindlessly, numbly. Leftover pasta, a half-eaten donut, crackers, a slice of cheese, then another, then more. I wasn't tasting any of it. I wasn't even hungry. I just wanted to disappear, to be full enough to forget, to be numb enough to not feel that whisper crawling under my skin. After, I sat on the floor in the kitchen with my back against the cabinets, arms wrapped around my knees. Still no tears, just emptiness. An aching silence where hope had been just that morning. I picked up my phone, opened the email from Kara, reread her kind words. I almost replied, almost told her what happened, almost asked, "Did you know they'd treat me like this?" But I didn't, because what would be the point? She probably meant well, but the gym, the culture, the people, the system was never built for someone like me, and I was done pretending otherwise. That night, I turned off all the lights in my apartment and lay in bed staring at the ceiling. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was tired. Tired of trying. Tired of hoping. Tired of believing that if I just worked hard enough, smiled wide enough, shrunk small enough, maybe I could belong. But belonging, I realized, was a currency I could never afford in that world. And if I couldn't belong there, maybe I needed to build a world where I did. I didn't leave the apartment for 5 days. I didn't answer texts, didn't check emails, didn't return calls from work. I turned off the notifications and let the world go on without me. I stayed inside, curtains closed, lights dimmed, phone on silent. I only moved to eat. And not even to eat, just to fill. To plug the hole inside me that kept widening. There were no real meals, just whatever I could reach. Cold pizza, spoonfuls of peanut butter, crackers eaten in bed. I wasn't tasting anything. I was just numbing myself, silencing the echo in my head. That whisper wouldn't leave me. Gym isn't for fat people. It had embedded itself into the walls of my apartment, into the spaces between my bones, into the silence between bites. At night, I'd lie awake in bed, staring at the ceiling fan spinning, wondering what was wrong with me. Not just my body, but me. My softness, my hunger, my hope. Because that's what hurt most. Not the rejection, not even the cruelty. It was the fact that I had dared to hope. I had let myself believe, just for a moment, that I was worthy of that space, of that possibility, of that future. And the world had reminded me, you're not. On the third day, I showered. Not because I wanted to, but because I could smell myself. I caught a glimpse of my body in the mirror, wet, heavy, tired. I looked away so quickly I almost slipped on the tile. I dressed in the same hoodie and leggings I'd worn all week. Sat on the couch, turned on the TV and let it run in the background. Noise. I just needed noise. Because silence meant thinking. And thinking meant remembering. Remembering every time I'd been the punchline. Every time someone said, "You have such a pretty face." Every time I'd walked into a store and nothing fit. Every diet that failed. Every pound that returned. Every glance I pretended not to notice. I wanted to disappear, but not die. It wasn't about death. It was about invisibility. I wanted to be unseen, untouched, unjudged, to stop existing in a world that never left me alone. My body had always been public property, open for commentary, correction, criticism. Even silence was a form of violence, people choosing to pretend I wasn't there. And now I was choosing it too. I became the ghost of my own life, floating between bed and kitchen, existing without really living. I stopped journaling, stopped stretching, stopped caring. I unfollowed every fitness account I had bookmarked, deleted the saved workouts, even archived old photos of myself smiling, because I didn't believe her anymore. That version of me, the one who had tried, that girl was stupid. That girl thought she could change something, be something. That girl walked into a gym thinking she deserved help. I hated her, and I hated the me that was left behind, broken, bloated, angry, and so tired. By day 5, the trash was piling up. My sink was full of dishes. The smell of stale food and depression filled the apartment. I sat on the floor of my bedroom and picked up my phone, not to call anyone, not even to scroll, just to look at it, to feel the weight of something that could connect me to the world I no longer trusted. And that's when I saw it. A message, a notification from Instagram, from an old account I had forgotten I followed. It was a reel, a fat woman, dancing, freely, fully. Her stomach jiggled, her arms moved through the air like water. She was smiling so hard it made her whole body glow. There was no before, no after, no, I lost X pounds, no, I hated myself and now I love myself. Just presence, joy, movement. I watched it twice, then again, then again. And for the first time in 5 days, I breathed in, deeply. My chest rose, and I felt something crack. It wasn't hope, not yet. It was curiosity, a whisper inside me, not like the one at the gym, softer, kinder. Something like, what if movement didn't have to hurt? What if your body wasn't broken? What if this wasn't the end? I closed the app, didn't move, didn't cry, but for the first time in days, I listened. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. I didn't know why. I hadn't planned anything. but my body stirred, like it was asking me for something. Something small, something gentle. I sat up, slowly, unsure of what to do with the feeling. There was no rush, no fire, no grand motivation speech playing in my head, just a question. What if you moved your body, not to change it, but to hear it again? That reel, the one with the woman dancing, still lived in my head. The way her body flowed, the joy in her face, it hadn't left me. So I searched her name, found her account, scrolled through post after post. She called herself a fat movement coach, not fitness coach, not weight loss expert, just movement. Movement for joy, movement for release, movement without punishment. I didn't know that was allowed. I clicked on a video she'd posted. 10-minute morning flow for bigger bodies. I grabbed the yoga mat I'd stuffed behind my closet door months ago. It still had dust on it. I rolled it out on the living room floor, closed the blinds, locked the door, just in case. Then I pressed play. The video started with breath, just breath. Inhale, exhale. That's movement. Her voice was calm, like she wasn't trying to impress anyone. My body cracked and protested, but I followed along. Slow stretches, gentle twists, feet planted, arms lifted. Halfway through, I stopped. My thighs burned. My arms shook, but not from shame, from effort. Real, honest effort. And my body didn't hate me for it. I sat on the mat, sweaty and breathless, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like a failure. I felt here. That night, I journaled again, just a few lines. I moved today. I didn't hate it. I didn't hate me. That feels like something. The next day, I did it again. A shorter video this time. No rules, no pressure. I just wanted to see what it felt like to be present in my own skin. By the third day, I followed her on Instagram. By the fifth, I commented, "Thank you. I didn't know I was allowed to move without punishing myself." She replied, a simple, "You are." 2 words. I cried. Because I had waited years for that permission, and never realized I didn't need anyone to grant it but me. I started to find others like her. Fat dancers, plus-size yogis, instructors who talked about movement as healing, not discipline. Pages where I saw bodies like mine not as problems, but as instruments of joy. It was like finding a new language. Fat joy, fat strength, fat softness that wasn't weakness. I began writing again, not about weight loss, not about diets, about rage, about shame, about reclaiming space. And then, an idea came. It was quiet, like most beginnings are. I was watching a live class hosted by one of the creators I followed. She was teaching from a small studio, bare walls, wooden floor, bright lighting. People of all sizes moved behind her, laughing, trying, sweating. And suddenly I thought, what if I made a space like this? Not a gym, not a class, a sanctuary, a place where fat people could move without fear, without performance, without being watched, measured, judged, or fixed. Where we didn't have to whisper our goals, where we didn't have to apologize for being out of breath, where we could just be. I grabbed my notebook and wrote for hours. Names, colors, class ideas, music, vibe. It wasn't a plan yet. It was a dream. But this time, I didn't bury it. I told a friend, then 2. I shared the idea anonymously in a body-positive Facebook group, and the comments poured in. I would drive hours for a space like that. Please create it. We need it. I've been waiting for this my whole life. And just like that, it wasn't just mine anymore. It was ours. I didn't have all the answers. I didn't know where to start. But I knew this. I had been humiliated for daring to enter a space that was never meant for me. And now, I would build one where they would never belong, because this one wouldn't be built on shame, or perfection, or punishment. It would be built on breath, on softness, on strength, on the quiet power of saying, we deserve to exist. It didn't happen overnight. Building something from scratch never does, especially when the world tells you every day that your body isn't welcome in certain spaces. But I was done asking for permission, so I found a space. A small, unused room in the back of a community center. Wooden floors, big windows, peeling paint, cheap rent. Perfect. I cleaned it myself, painted the walls a soft green, hung up string lights, bought secondhand yoga mats, resistance bands, foldable chairs. I printed signs that said, "You don't need to earn your body." No mirrors, no weigh-ins, no apologies. This is a fat-friendly space. I called it the body room. Not a gym, not a studio. Not a place to transform, a place to return to yourself. I made an Instagram page, shared my story little by little, no filters, no fake confidence, just honesty. People found it. People like me. People who were tired of being laughed at, ignored, or crushed by diet culture. People who didn't want to be fixed. They just wanted to move, to breathe, to be. The first class had 5 people. All of us nervous. All of us bigger than what the world calls acceptable. No lycra, no performance. Just bodies in motion. We moved slowly, with music, with breath. Some of us cried. All of us stayed. By the end of the month, the room was full. We added more classes, chair movement, gentle flow, fat dance nights. Someone brought fairy lights. Someone else brought a portable speaker. One woman brought her daughter, another brought her mother. We built something sacred. And then, one day I got an email from the gym. That gym. The same one that whispered me into silence. The same one that made me believe I didn't belong. They had seen our page. They were inspired. They wanted to collaborate on a body positivity event. I stared at the email for a long time. I didn't feel rage or satisfaction or revenge. I felt nothing. Because I no longer needed their approval, their attention, their space. I had created something they could never replicate. They had mirrors. We had community. They had rules. We had grace. They had shame. We had freedom. So I deleted the email. And that night, during class, I told our newest members, if the world makes you feel like your body doesn't belong, remember, it's the world that needs changing, not you. They nodded. Some smiled, some cried. After class, I stayed behind. The room was quiet, the lights soft. I stood barefoot on the mat, arms loose at my sides, heart beating slow and steady. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who cried in parking lots, who starved herself for validation, who believed she had to suffer to be seen. And I whispered to her, "You were never the problem." That night, I recorded a voice note, just for myself. But today, I'm sharing it with you. If you've ever felt like a stranger in your own body, if you've ever been laughed at, dismissed, or made to feel like too much, if someone whispered something cruel that stayed with you for years, I want you to know you are not broken. You are not a before photo. You don't need to shrink to be worthy. You are allowed to exist, to breathe, to dance, to move for the joy of it, not as punishment. And if the world hasn't made a place for you yet, build one. Start with breath, start with softness, start with you. If this story touched you, leave a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. You never know who's scrolling and needs to see it. Like this video, subscribe, share it with someone who's been hiding. Let's keep building spaces where all bodies are welcome, because they said the gym wasn't for fat people. They were right. This one was never meant for them.